Rodri, De Bruyne, Gundogan, and then they'd have, you know, outnumber in certain wide positions. But it was in that type of area that they put an extra body, maybe to combat Liverpool's midfield. They had almost like a box in there, like a square, which we'll go on to see in a few of the clips. Cancelo and Foden were obviously, you know, tasked with being the wider players, and it was definitely Foden that played a little bit higher than Cancelo in the game. But again, that was there to be quite fluid. But it was just a big surprise for me that Pep Guardiola, obviously past experiences of going to Anfield, they're tough. It's a tough game. It's like no other game going to. It feels such a small pitch at Anfield. Even playing as a home team, you feel it feels small with the crowd quite intimidated. And I just felt that he thought that we've been there a few times. It's not an easy place to go. We've got to try something different.
Well, let's take a look at some of the clips, as you said, and see how it actually transpired. You know, already we always see, don't we, the width from Manchester City, but it was the wing backs, Foden and Cancelo, and then there's that box. I know Bernardo Silva's slightly lopsided on this occasion, but there's that box in the middle with the back three that we can all see.
Yeah, exactly, and that's how they set off. And once play sort of develops, it becomes even more apparent how they're playing. Really, there's the
just to point out. Sorry, Michael. There's Liverpool's flat four. Jota playing quite a bit deeper, and Harvey Elliott quite wide, considering where we expected them to play.
Well, on that point, Leon, as well, I mean, we thought that it would be a Jota in sort of in this position here as a 4-3-3, but it was quite apparent that he was just dropping in with this in mind. He threatened. He didn't mark him at all, Kevin De Bruyne, but he just threatened. He just put off the person in possession to squeeze that ball. But as you say, Liverpool quite rightly there in a 4-4-2. Which again is quite a rare system for Liverpool to adopt. But from Manchester City's point of view, they still have the width. They're trying to spread that back four of Liverpool. And of course, one of the keys to Manchester City over time is the way they outnumber players, or outnumber teams, I should say, in these areas here. Now, normally they've got another man here, and they're outnumbering, but you can quite clearly see that they're outnumbered themselves here.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot of work asked of Jota and Harvey Elliott on the other side, and Thiago to constantly shuffle across, but it was as if, you know, everybody documented that City like to attack in these areas. Jurgen Klopp did his homework. Jurgen Klopp said, well, we'll let you have the ball in certain positions, but you will not affect us in these areas of the field where we know you're the strongest, and they were prepared to work hard across both sides of the field.
Yeah, and what just before we play there, you know, I think what we also noticed is that Manchester City can do a switch of play quite quickly and then outnumber on the other side. And it wasn't like these players here were busting a gut to get across and the whole team squeezing the play. They were actually knew that maybe these types of areas in here aren't really areas that Manchester City are hurting teams at the moment. They tend to do it wide and then get the ball in the box for Haaland. So they were prepared to leave that vacant. And when the switch of play went, they were actually in position to double up on the far sides.
Yeah, I mean, as a midfielder, my instinct there would be to shuffle across.
Absolutely.
You don't want to expose the gaps in the middle of the
field. Everybody to be shuffling across the whole back four. Normally, you know, you try to squeeze the play in a certain way, and if the ball goes, it takes a couple of seconds. You can always turn and reposition yourself. But as we see here, they can't get out. They're outnumbered, and all of a sudden they'll try to switch the play. But Liverpool are in positions to do exactly the same on that far side.
Well, just point that out there. You know, this box of three already, this box of four, beg your pardon, already set up and already outnumbering Manchester City. And not seeing that too often from Manchester City. As you pointed out, usually we'll see Foden get the ball on this side of the field, and there'll be a runner from here, there'll be a runner from here, and that pass is played in, and they get behind teams so easily and so often. But I didn't see them doing that against Liverpool. I didn't see them getting behind Liverpool's defence. Van Dijk and Gomez weren't really asked too many questions running back towards their own goal.
No, they weren't. They weren't threatened in behind, really. And I think this is another good clip of Jota. You see him, he's always looking over his shoulder just to find out where De Bruyne is, and he's never actually picking him up, but he's always in the vicinity, ready to pick him up.
There's the clear shape. Yet again, there's the back three, there's that box of midfield players, there's Haaland right up the top for Manchester City. For Liverpool, again, quite clear. Pretty much two banks of four, there's your Mo Salah just momentarily deep. So it was quite clear what both managers had set up to do. Do you think Pep Guardiola was surprised by what Liverpool did? Because I think he set up to play against a 4-3-3, try and get De Bruyne in this space, thinking, as you said, Jota will be higher up, Do you think he was caught out by Jurgen Klopp?
I think based on the previous couple of games, Arsenal away and Rangers away in the Champions League, I think Pep Guardiola thought that he could get behind this Liverpool defence, and that happened in both of those games an awful lot. And coincidentally, it happened in these areas that Kevin De Bruyne was in. In and around these areas here, that's where Liverpool were losing out in those previous two games. So I think he was really conscious, Jurgen Klopp, of blocking those areas, and Pep Guardiola obviously trying to exploit it, because getting your best man on the ball in those dangerous areas is absolute key. And we see from one or two of the clips that when they made it work, it really is a thorn in the
I just
Liverpool
want to point out something you told me before about, just watch Mo Salah here. It was as if it was a clear message from Liverpool to try and stop the ball being passed this way, to try and stop any ball through there, to force Liverpool to play, Manchester City to play down their left hand side, keep the ball away from this man here. You see the body position of Mo Salah.
Absolutely, and if we move it on slowly, and I was always asked to do this as a centre forward, is a lot of the time as we see Mo Salah, just his body angle there is saying, right, this side of the pitch is just not getting past to it. This is going out wide. But as a centre forward, I was always told you're never going to rarely going to win the first one. But what you have to do is give your teammates, you should be winning the second or the third. And it's my job to actually force a team where we want them to go. So in this case, Mo Salah has quite clearly been told we want to force them to the left side of the pitch. That's the least dangerous side, and hopefully they can get their bodies across them.
And so Liverpool will be happy with the way this is transpiring, because, you know, how often have we seen Manchester City move the ball across the pitch, and once they do, they get into these positions and they'll have a Kevin De Bruyne, or they may have someone already in this position, and we constantly see these passes, or we see real intricate play. Very rarely we see Manchester City delivering a cross early from those positions in any game, never mind a game of this stature.
No, and Liverpool quite clearly are outnumbering them in these situations. And I was on the game yesterday, working on the game, and myself and Rafa Benitez were looking at previous games of Manchester City and how they outnumber teams in these areas, and this really is the key to their success. Now, Liverpool, they've done their homework as well, and you know, I think Pep Guardiola was possibly surprised by what Liverpool were doing.
Well, this is one of the keys. There's two things I want you to watch. You want to watch the reaction of both of these players here, because this is one of the opportunities that they did have. Rodri getting turned, we've seen his quality, getting that into Kevin De Bruyne, because this is what Manchester City want. Cancelo running away, having De Bruyne, Haaland, people in good positions. But what's the frustration from Kevin De Bruyne and from Pep Guardiola here? Again, Jota, just to point that out, as we've just showed Mo Salah, coming from this angle, making sure that has to force Manchester City to go back that way. But just look at the reaction of those two players, because Liverpool, on more occasions than not, frustrated Manchester City there.
Well, when that's their plan is to push them over there, and you get the odd opportunity from Manchester City's point of view to get the ball into there, then you have to take it. If you're Manchester City, you have to take it, and that's where the frustration comes from both Pep Guardiola and Kevin De Bruyne. Because we see later on, I think it might be this clip, or it might be the next one, but Kevin De Bruyne gets in that area, and then all of a sudden Liverpool have big problems, and probably the chance of the match from Manchester City's point of view came from that area. And we quite clearly see here, Jota is out of position up here, probably been on attack. He can't get back in time to get back and just thwart that opportunity. And when we roll it on, you see actually this time he does get on the ball at long last, and this is exactly at this point, this is exactly where Manchester City want Liverpool. As it happens, it's a very, very similar chance to the goal that they scored against Manchester United, where De Bruyne actually fizzed it quite low. This time he goes high onto the back post, but it's a similar area, only this time Haaland isn't as clinical as normal. So I mean, we could tell what they tried to do, but obviously Liverpool was savvy to it. They were wary of it, and they prevented it more often than not.
Yeah, it was a frustrating day for Pep Guardiola. But Liverpool, that certainly wasn't the case. Liverpool were were a threat every time they got real possession of the ball, Michael, weren't they?
They were. I thought. I mean, I was covering the game with Rafa Benitez, and he was adamant in the first half that Manchester City had the tactical advantage. And sometimes, when you look at this clip, for example, you pair them all off. Manchester City basically man for man all over the place. So sometimes, when it's very difficult to play out there, as you well know, sometimes you've got to do a long. We'll call it a long pass, because it absolutely was. It certainly wasn't a long ball. And we see Virgil van Dijk here spraying the ball right out wide. Brilliant ball. All of a sudden, that gives Liverpool the momentum. You've got players running forward, and this was a brilliant move. Started with a long ball, and then all of a sudden, good intricate passing, and this was one of the best attacks of the half of Liverpool.
I mean, when you face a team that press like Manchester City have done, that one pass takes 4 or 5 players out of the game, and always then you've got the opposition defenders running back towards their own goal, which is where you want them to be.
And do you know what it also does? It puts some manners on the team. They think to themselves, I'm not going to go and press again. It's going to ping over our head and we've got to chase 30 yards back. Almost makes people think. So if they do that once or twice in a game, all of a sudden, as I say, it puts manners on them.
Yeah, it certainly does. Well, just want to point to this guy. I thought had a pretty good game, both in his defending, his ability on the ball, but some of his positions he took up were brilliant. We just see Liverpool winning the ball back there. This is just an opportunity that they should have had if Firmino could have just moved that ball on quickly. You see the spaces that he's in at the top of the field, if they could have gotten him away. And we see we'll see it again. Liverpool winning the ball back, getting forward. Jota in that deep role. You see, I mean, even this deep, just pointing out Liverpool's midfield 4 as deep as they are, but watch how quickly they can spring forward. De Bruyne doesn't match Harvey Elliott's run, just breezes into there. And if Jota plays a better pass at the end of this, you see the opportunity there.
Yeah, it's absolutely opportunity, but just look at this as well. If Mo Salah had any awareness of what was behind him, his first part of his run is fantastic. Look at that, the space he's creating. This could develop into a one-on-one, but all of a sudden, look, he changes his run. He now goes and kills the space for Harvey Elliott. And don't get me wrong, the ball is still on there, but now there's 2 of them, and Nathan Ake can pretty much defend both of them. So I thought that was an opportunity missed if Mo Salah had been a little bit more aware. But as you said, Harvey Elliott picking up some great spaces. I actually thought that on this occasion he was going to be the one to whip it down. As soon as Mo Salah, sort of, you'll see him in a minute just make that opposite movement, but he does the right thing. He actually takes a little bit of time and then plays the ball, buys an extra little pass in there, gives Mo Salah a chance to spring through with his marker, and then it's a one-on-one, which, I mean, when we looked at it from behind during the game, it's an absolute brilliant save. I mean, it's going in the corner and he just gets a little touch on it to send it out wide.
Yeah, brilliant play by Salah. His movement I thought was incredible, but yeah, what a save. Kept Man City in the game at that point. And again, just highlight Harvey Elliott. Brilliant position, just trying to stay on the shoulder. We see on this occasion Liverpool with their front 2. Jota's already seen his team are in possession of the ball. He's trying to make it a front 3. Cancelo's in trouble because he's going to struggle to recover from that position. And once Harvey Elliott has this touch,
look at this for first touch.
Once he has this touch, what a brilliant first touch that is. Ake's gambled, got it wrong, and actually from this moment, look at the runners Liverpool have got.
Look at the runners, and this little run just keeps this man, you know, away from that area. I think he probably knows that this is going to be a huge space, and the more he can clear this space out of the way, the easier the ball for Harvey Elliott, the more space Jota's got to run into, and he does it. Firmino just clears that space, creates a big space through the middle, and unfortunately for Liverpool, they couldn't quite take advantage of that nice passage of play, but Harvey Elliott got into some cracking positions. This is an interesting one as well. That ball from Mo Salah was absolutely sublime. You know, he almost stubs it with the outside of his foot, curling onto his head, but unfortunately Jota couldn't capitalise.
Well, let's take a look at that Jota chance, because it was a big one. I could have, put Liverpool ahead earlier in the game, but as you mentioned, it was a great ball by Mo Salah, but it's got an incredible amount of spin on that delivery, hasn't it? What difference does that make when Jota's trying to get his head on the end of this?
Well, it does. It makes an awful lot of difference, and I think it's probably the most underrated, undervalued, spoken about area of football. If you just watch this, obviously we're taking it slowly, so that's got backspin, and it's got almost from that direction, it's got right to left spin. So you're having to work out, and you do pretty quickly in a game of football, where does that mean your header's going to go? So In this case, with backspin and right to left spin, the ball is going to go down and kick off left off your head, more so than normal. So if you just aim at the middle of the goal, then in theory that should go quite low to that near post so the left post as he's heading it, this near post to us. So you've always got to work that out. And I often, as I said, for a centre forward, you understand that as soon as a ball comes in, let's say from the right wing and it's curling towards you, if I'm heading it back to where it came from, into that near post, I'm aiming about a yard outside, depending on how much spin is coming. If it's got backspin on it, so it's turning that way, naturally it hits your head and goes down a little bit further down, and obviously topspin kicks it high. So all of these things you've got to work out, and this ball, I think if you look at him there, he's trying to head it back across, he's trying to get really round it to head in the first, but it actually goes into this near corner, and I think that's the spin that's probably caused it.
You can see when we slow and stop, that's why I stopped there, he is looking like he's trying to aim back across to that far post, but with the amount of spin on the ball, maybe.
I think a natural, just to think my point, and if he's heading it there, and with that bottom spin and side spin, I reckon it sort of goes in this direction. You've got to weigh all that up when the ball's coming. It's a brilliant ball from Mo Salah, but a really tricky one to head.
It's one of those ones that if you score, it's easy, and if you miss, it's how could you miss it? And it was a big miss for Jota at that moment. But Liverpool eventually did get the goal. It was Mo Salah that got it in.
Yeah.
It comes from a Manchester City free kick. It comes from a position where Manchester City should feel that they're comfortable. The players behind the ball. I want to highlight the goal scorer there. He's just in the wall. He's doing his job defensively. But his reaction compared to the Manchester City players in and around him is just it's just night and day, and it makes the opportunity for him.
Absolutely. Well, when we look at the ball coming in and just watch Mo Salah and look at him, as soon as he sees that ball floating high, you can see he's set off before everybody else, and it's quite amazing when you're actually defending a corner. You're probably thinking, I hope we don't go 1-0 down here, but he's actually thinking the opposite. And all good strikers do, and every situation thinking, can I score from this situation? What's going to happen? And he could see that ball. As soon as it went over his head, he turned around and he saw it floating, didn't he?
Yeah.
He saw Alisson coming and he set off, and everybody else, every Man City player, was ball watching, and he was thinking opportunity. And now look what he's got. By the time Alisson actually kicks it, he's one-on-one.
It's the instinct of someone like yourself and Mo Salah that see opportunities. Kevin De Bruyne and Gundogan, and I think it's Phil Foden, didn't see the panic. They didn't see the trouble because they've not got that defensive instinct.
No.
Mo Salah certainly got that attacking instinct, and it benefited him. Yes, we can't get away from. It's a big mistake by this guy.
It is. You can't get too close to Mo Salah. And again, it's something else that not many people realise. This lad is one of the strongest people in football. Okay, he's only small, he's only 5'7" or 5'8", but he is he lives in the gym.
Yeah.
He absolutely lives. I interviewed him not so long ago, and he said to me, how often did you go in the gym when you, and I said, well, maybe once or twice a week. He said, oh no, I'm in there for hours every single day, before training, after training. Now, he doesn't do it to put on bulk. He's just got some real inner strength about him, and as soon as you get into a wrestle with him, he'll knock you off the ball. And the finish was brilliant as well, Leon. I mean, absolutely brilliant, considering he went through with a similar chance not so long earlier, just before. I just thought it was a brilliant show of total confidence and self-belief, and he lifted the ball. You normally need to lift the ball in that situation.
Well, that's the goal that won it. Let's go and have a quick chat with Leroy. Leroy, what have you got for us?
Well, you guys have just analysed that goal brilliantly, but what I wanted to do, I wanted to analyse what actually happened after the goal, because there's a little bit of confusion about it. Look, here's a goal, and as you said, Salah does absolutely brilliant, shows tremendous strength, terrible from Cancelo, but just as the ball just goes in the back of the net, it doesn't actually go in the back of the net, it bounces out, and you're thinking, well, how can it happen? The net doesn't even move. And there's a few people thought, is it a goal? Is it not a goal?
Me included.
You included as well. But I tell you what, someone who knew it was a goal before it even hit the back of the net was Pep, because he's pounding the ground. He knows it's going to be a goal. It goes straight in the back of the net. He knew it was going to end up in the back of the net. But the bench didn't know. I'm just going to play this slowly. Just look at Fabinho. He thinks it's bounced out. Firmino knows it's a goal. Now, look, it's a little celebration from Fabinho. And even the person that Klopp's celebrating with, he's not sure. He's thinking, is that in? Yeah, it is in. It is in. It was brilliant. There was so much indecision about the goal.
Yeah.
But the one man who knew it was in was that man, Salah. assists. I mean, Alisson, absolutely brilliant. I mean,
Better, I'm really pleased to say we're joined by Maram El-Bahana, our analyst, to talk us through everything that we're going to discuss. Maram, welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
How did you get into analytics?
Well, I watched my team do 6-1 to Tottenham, and from there I had to figure out what happened. So I then jumped into analytics.
Brilliant. So we're going to look at some of the stories in the Premier League. Here is our first one with expected goals. We can see the goal scorers and the goal expected goals. We can see the goal scorers and the goals they've scored, the XG, the difference. Do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, so basically what you're trying to figure out here is the point of football is to score goals, yeah, but it's actually a really low scoring game. So you're trying to figure out who can actually give you the highest probability of scoring goals. And if you look at the top scorer this season, Erling Haaland, he scored 14 goals, but from an XG of 8. Now, a lot of people can say this is luck, but when you look at the positions that he's scoring from, for example, it means that he's an excellent finisher. He has a positive XG of 6. And then the lower you go down the list, the more you can actually figure it out. For example, Madison here, he scored only 5 goals from 1.78 XG. So yes, he's an excellent finisher, which means that he can get us goals from low probability shots. You even have examples like, for example, Leandro Trossard. He has scored 5 goals, and it's not one of those Premier League stars that you would usually be looking at, for example, Mohamed Salah or Erling Haaland. But he's actually also able to overperform. But the entire story this table tells us exactly is that Haaland has been miles beyond what we could have expected. Even though it's been quite early into the season, he's actually an excellent finisher and massive overperformer, which has allowed Manchester City to even excel in the table for points.
Yeah, I find that fascinating, and I think it's really important that people understand as well that certain goal scorers, I mean,